All right, time for weekly outlook. Should be an exciting week with FOMC midweek. Currently trading towards sort of within this prior balance, right? Essentially Liberation Day. So we've worked our way all the way back up. Pretty historic week off of the lows, um, and kind of at least profile wise, balance wise, like trading back into this balance we established in March, right? Essentially all of March. Um, so it looks good in that regard. We got over these past pivot lows, pivot highs, flipped it, held it midweek last week, formed a distribution there, gapped up overnight on news and earnings, uh, and sort of ended last week with an upper distribution there. So simply looking at this profile, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's a double distribution, right? We work off of, okay, can buyers sustain this move higher and keep us within this upper distribution? Do we have to back test this lower one? See if there are new buyers willing to step in, um, and see where we go, like whether we go up or like accept back into this balance below and go test the lower end before looking for what to do next. Who knows? But that'll be like the main idea, at least short term, near term. Bigger picture, right? We have this balance to traverse, sort of back towards this upper end, right? This puts you a little bit closer to, I believe, yeah, your pivot load there, a couple pivot highs and pivots here, right? Sort of where this came in. This also happened to be the anchored VWAP off of the high here, if I'm not mistaken, or close to, right? Sort of up against this first test of the 200 on the daily. Now, we can maybe put one up here at the all-time. It's not the all-time high. Maybe we can throw one at the 2025 open, right? Sort of work with that just a little bit above us. 5750 is sort of this big one, big point of control within this balance, but I would like to go see this upper end, right? Sort of see that move, that traversal through the balance now that we've accepted into it seems like, right? Had issue getting over it here, two sessions, 3 sessions. Got over, looking like it's gonna traverse this balance area, this prior balance area, sort of towards this upper end, up against this, what is this, 100 and the 50 day? No, 100 and the 200 again. So we'll look for that. That's gonna be like the first big upside target up there, up against like 5800, right? Seems like same idea on NQ. Right, this is your 2025 anchored VWAP. We're over this one anchored at the high here. We flipped it, I believe, one of these sessions here. Let me get that there. Yeah, we flipped it. Got back over this high volume node here, all right, within this balance. Although this level felt a little bit more significant, like the balance low here. Got over, kind of see if we can maybe attempt to traverse this towards 24. It looks like 2450 to like 500. This shelf here, this uppermost shelf here. Right? So essentially these pivot highs. And in terms of like what buyers need to defend now, of course, we have this double distribution from last week, right? We have that and that. So buyers would like to defend this. Also lines up with a high volume node there from this prior balance. I don't think they're. I think we have to like take a look at on the weekly and just say like, if we start taking out this low, right, which was your pivot low here, a couple pivot highs here, sort of in that area. If we can start taking this out, sellers can take this out. I think the sell steps back in and can take it down to test these lows, some of these lows, and maybe even lower, new lows. But this is the first big level, right? And first big upside level, sort of up here prior to the 700 area. Okay, sort of the look on the daily. If we go down to the profile, it probably gives us a better look. All right, a little bit of a choppy balance, this prior one. A couple of just pockets, although I want to just call this one singular balance here. A lot of like small pockets, right? I sort of have some levels in between here, like at some of these shelves that I think are important. And we saw reactions to the lower end, right? This session, and even Friday. So those levels will stay put, and those ideas will stay the same. In terms of like levels that we saw last week, maybe digging a little deeper. Still gonna pay attention to the shelf here. This is the 2025 composite. It gives us a little bit of a better picture. This 5673 lines up with Friday's excess low and near Thursday's excess high, right? Sort of that lowest volume area between it's not like one specific area, but a little gap there between the two sessions here that we can work with. The level below, though, I think I'm going to be watching this spike, end of day spike, and maybe that high volume node there at like 5625-ish. I'm moving that a little bit. And then unfilled gap there on the daily, and trading back below this would be bad news. Although I kind of want to make this a line in the sand for buyers, 5520, but it's a little tricky. You got pivot highs here, excess high here, low here, low here. But yeah, if sellers can get us back into last week's lower distribution, these 3 sessions here, or yeah, these 3 sessions here. I know this is Friday to Wednesday. If they can get it back into that range, I think they have a decent chance to make a run for this 5520, and then we'll see what happens there. I know we were watching this last week, right? These pivot highs, and they opened below it, but they really couldn't get selling in. So kind of just they failed and made a distribution higher. So that looked good, right? And at the end of the day, you got that spike up. So even if we're below this, we'll probably look to see how the session ends or settles and what kind of profile, where value is established, whatever profile, whatever it looks like. We'll see if sellers can actually like establish value down there and keep pushing it lower. Right. So I think that's how I'll approach sort of the downside is, okay, can sellers actually move value and keep it below some levels, because currently they're getting below levels, but they're not holding below them, right? So it's a really good environment, at least for buyers, if you're waiting for a reclaim of important levels. And that's sort of what I'm attempting to do now. I'm actually long. I just got long some NQs up against this like 060 area. We'll see if that works. But yeah, a couple other shelves that I marked off, just sort of know where we're trading. But the easiest play, at least for buyers, is just going to be like, can we get over Friday's highs, keep the one time framing up on the daily, just keep that going, and sort of see these upside levels, right? With this 5750 being like the first big important one, and then 5815 and like this 5850 area being like sort of the big final upside targets. Okay, actually no, this 5815 is a pretty important one. But yeah, I think if buyers can like just keep shifting value higher, I think there should be no problem up here. One of the issues I see, or potentially, is you're getting up to some overbought ratings. This is like the shortest one. What is this? The 20-day S&P names about the 20-day. This is the 100-day 50 or 200, 50 and then 200, right? Okay, this should be below here, but the 20 is coming up to that area. You can spend time above here, right? The S&P index here, but each time you can come up here, you sort of start to see a little bit of a slowdown. If these ones are working their way up, I think you can still work your way up there. You're not above the 50 on the 200-day. So we got some room higher to go, right? Where this 20-day mark, we can sort of like spend some time chopping at the highs, right? But you still get pullbacks, multi-day, like 2-day pullbacks, multi-day balances, right? Where we don't really go anywhere new. So we could get some of that, or start to see a little bit of that, where the index itself gets smaller intraday ranges, barring any big headlines. We still have earnings ahead of us, a couple of them. Right, but where the index ranges get a little smaller, the ATR has decreased a little bit, but individual names still got room to go, right? And that's sort of where that rotation comes in, and you're picking stocks instead of like indexes, right? If you're really trying to outperform that week or that given day. So, you know, that's sort of what I'm thinking is like a little bit of a slowdown intraday potentially across indexes. Um, and yeah, but still a little bullish, right? If we're over levels or holding levels, or if sellers are failing to keep it below levels, right? And NQ, similar situation. Um, they're sort of within their balance looks a little bit different. That they were a little bottom heavy in this March balance here. Um, really stylish value here. That's sort of why we expected some rejection here the first couple times we tested it, and we did, right? Until earnings took us out. Earnings and some headlines, some good news out of China, really. But this is sort of that one big balance, or maybe you can push it up there. So hoping to see that traversal to, sort of to go visit this pivot, this last pivot high up here, relatively somewhat weak or poor, lacking some excess up here. So we'd really like to go see that. And I think, yeah, the upside level is going to be this like 700 area, right where this starts to taper off. So that'll be like the first couple of big upside targets, this 450 to 500 area, and then this 700 area. Okay. Downside, same idea as I sort of discussed before with ES. Double distribution last week, and with the upper end of the lower distribution last week being at this important shelf here, right up against this prior value. That's going to be like sort of the line in the sand, at least, sellers can like get it below that and keep it below that. I think it becomes a little bit of an issue, and I think we risk trading back into this area. Although there seems to be decent support here. Who knows? They might pick up some new sellers, and if they do end up breaking this, I would be a little cautious. Okay. At least if you're a buyer, but yeah, I really like this as like the level buyers need to defend, and if it comes here, like I don't think I'm gonna be limit long, but I prefer this as a limit long. This one I prefer to kind of just observe what we do. Sort of same idea with this like 060 level, which will be the focus at least now going into Monday. Probably the focus into Monday. Just Friday's little excess low. So we'll watch that. Don't really have like any other levels within Thursday's range that I love, except for the shelf here that we seem to get bid off of on Thursday. Earnings took you lower. Actually, earnings on this day were awful. Apple and I believe Amazon. Really awful earnings. Or was it Google? It was Apple and someone else. They had really, really poor earnings. And we traded down to like 750, and then you got a headline out of China, which kind of just bid us up. So that was unfortunate. I had some orders resting 730 and 700, 690. Was hoping we were going to get filled. It looked like we were going to get filled. It just didn't. So maybe that's like the back test they needed. They got defended. Well, I don't want to say defended because it was a headline, well-timed headline. But yeah, first level I'll watch this week is like this 060. Just sort of like gauge which part of at least the upper distribution they want to stay in, right? Like Thursday's range, or do they want to trade back into Friday's range? And Friday's range really just starts at like it's like 120s, 130s, sort of where values or this profile starts to thicken up a little bit, right? The easiest play is just long over Friday's highs, and then this uppermost shelf at 260 value area high as well, right? Just try to take it up to this 320s, and then ideally it's 450, 500 area. It would be the first big upside target, and that's like 700 to 720s will be sort of the next one. Okay. So pretty simple. Like I said, I think it's a lot easier being long over levels. Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I know to me it's simple. I can look at these levels and sort of decide like which ones I want to be limit long at and which ones I kind of want to wait for reaction or wait for confirmation or wait for it to like maybe even sweep it before getting involved. Um, yeah, this is like the only clear one to me that I want to try to get bid at. Just blind 690 to 730. I'm okay scaling to that 40 point range. Uh, and then like maybe this one up here 260s if we can get over it, and I'd be okay with us being a limit long there if we can work over 130, be limit long 130, 120s, right? Just to sort of try to keep this within Friday's upper distribution and sort of start the next leg higher. Um, Equity, no real like play I love this week. I think we just continue being bullish IGV, and if you see setups there, like just go for it. IGV, your biggest holdings being Microsoft, Oracle. Oracle, we're already long equity there. Crowd, I have equity from lower, but Crowd, we played options there, and I still like it for new highs here. CRM1 hasn't reported yet. A little bit weaker compared to the other ones. I still like it. I haven't played this one yet. I think I might look to get involved. Question is where? Maybe we can look for that here. That'll be like the first upside target. See if putting on ETH changes anything. Probably just work with this profile from the last leg down. Ooh, coming up into this point of control. Okay, if we can get us over here, spend a day or two above, I'd like to be a bit against that. And sort of maybe try to hold along through earnings. If that's possible. I know they're reporting a couple of weeks. End of May. Yeah. Yeah, I think we can get positioned nicely. We can get if we can get us back over that. So, and a lot of these names are having decent earnings, decent guidance, right? Even ServiceNow had a good earnings. I know I discussed this in like a prior weekly outlook of getting long here. It just opened a little too low for me to get long. I should have just put it on. Oracle was fine. Oracle got a bit off of where we discussed we'd get long right up against this VWAP. And that one's doing well, but now is a missed one, right? Should have just been long the open and just maybe risked a little bit. But anyway, no specific setups I'm looking for this week on the equity side. But I just play some index options if they're, if we trade down to some key levels. And yeah, there's the weekly outlook.